Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be ranking every Precon from 2025. That is going to be 25 different Precons. Can you believe it? That is so many precons. We're going all the way back to MKM, covering everything that has released so far, and going to go make a tier list of them so that way you guys can kind of have my thoughts, overall thoughts on all of the precons that have come out this year. So we're going to start, go all the way back to the start of the year, which feels so long ago, but realistically it was only 7 months ago that this came out. Keep in mind there is no more precons that are coming out for Commander this year. Foundations doesn't have any, and that's the last set of the year, unless they spring something like a surprise secret lair drop or something like that on here. At the moment, this is the complete set of precons coming out. So we're going to start out with Blame Game. Now I'm going to be ranking them myself, and these are going to be my thoughts on like how likely I am to suggest them, basically. So the big things that I'm going to take into account are the usual things that I take into account on my like tier list or whatever when I kind of actually rank them when they're coming out and telling you which ones to buy as they're like, releasing. So that's going to be like how fun they are, how thematic they are, the reprints. However, keep in mind that as a precon kind of gets reprinted, the stuff that's reprinted kind of goes down a bit. So that's less impactful, and then also just the like the new cards that were released within it as well, because some of the new cards that were released within them are absolutely bonkers. And speaking of, new cards that were bonkers and new, like, decks that came out that had bonkers cards, Nelly Borker is the first one we're going to look at here, the Blame Game precon. So this was back in MKM. This precon is based around goading and encouraging your friends to go and attack someone. It's also one of the ones that, nearly every single one of my top 10 lists has had this one featured on it, just because of how great Nelly is as a commander and how great this deck was kind of put together as a goad deck that's all based around, getting your friends to kill each other. So overall, the deck featured a lot of different cards that were either protecting yourself or encouraging people to attack everyone else. There was some nice reprints in it, like Fiendish Duo has dropped heaps, but it was reprinted first in here, which was really good. Sun Titan as well, reprinted in here, which was really nice. There was just overall, they've done some nice kind of reprints in here that have kind of gone down a lot since the actual set release. But the biggest thing that kind of, everyone kind of talked about when this came out was Trouble in Pairs. We originally talked about it for bad reasons, because the art turned out that the art was just like a whole bunch of images that were mashed together and stuff and wasn't all that great. But overall, this card is really crazy, and you can see the kind of value from this card alone in here, which is really, really nice. We've got like a ghostly prison in here. We've got ways to be able to encourage people not to attack us too, which is nice. The other thing is that I would say most of the kind of 2024 precons all had really good land bases, which is good. I'm not going to need to focus too much on the land bases, because overall they just had nice land bases. And the fact that Nelly allows you to draw cards was really good too. We also had Prisoner Dilemma, which was another really new a new card with this set. And it was allowing you to do some fun little mini games, and it was like one of the big things that people talked about when this precon came out. I can't remember which card it is as well, but there is is it Take the Bait? No, it's one of the enchantments in here as well, Hot Pursuit. Yeah, Hot Pursuit. It allowed you to be able to win the game if you were focusing on goad, which was something we didn't really see before, but it lets you, if things are goaded and there's only you and one other person left in the game, you get to steal their goaded creatures, which was really good. It was like an actual win con for goad, which was really great, and something that goad really didn't have in a 1v1 setting. So I'm going to start off really strong here. I really think that Nelly Borker and the Blame Game is at least an A tier. I'm going to have a look. I'm going to adjust this as we kind of go, because I could potentially put this into S tier. It is an insanely great precon overall. Alrighty, next up we had the Deep Clue C one. So one big thing about the MKM precons is they all had really great reprints, and the Deep Clue C one was no exception to this. It was probably the one that had the second best reprints out of all of them, with Revenant being the most. So Deep Clue C was based around investigating and drawing cards. specifically trying to draw like your second card each turn, because you had a lot of things that were like, whenever you draw your second card each turn, do this, which was a very interesting mechanic. And this deck pulled it off rather well. So you've got a lot of stuff in here that was around card draw and, as I said, like just drawing different, like getting more card draw and stuff. And this was where they started kind of putting Academy Manufacturer. I don't think there was any precons prior to this with Academy Manufacturer, but they kind of decided that this was a really great one to kind of reprint in here. As for like the reprints, like, you know, they had Adrix and Nev, they had Benny Brax, they had, where was it? Tulane, which wasn't at as high, and Coma. There was just some, and I think Essex as well at the time was pretty high up. So there was some really kind of great reprints in here that we didn't kind of expect. And, you know, we had some nice enchantments and stuff to support it. On the Trail is used a lot in so many different decks now, because it just allows you to be able to ramp so hard if you're in card draw decks. We've got like Disorder in the Court was really nice. You know, there was just a lot of stuff to do with kind of card draw and kind of continuing on from that kind of card draw stuff. One thing is like the board wipes and stuff, where like you've got like destroy all non-artifact creatures. There wasn't a huge amount of artifact creatures from memory, which was a bit weird. And it had like 3 board wipes, which was interesting too. And Farewell reprinted here as well. The land base was pretty nice too. Not bonkers, but still nice for a precon. So I can't actually even remember which of the new cards were. I think Detective of the Month was definitely a new card. Yeah, I can't remember what the other new cards were in this one. Oh, Sophia, Merchant of Truth as well. You know, there was some nice new cards, but they weren't they weren't huge to they weren't something to kind of write home about. They were just nice. So overall, I think that this one, if we've got like Nelly Borka up there at A, I do think this was B. I think it was a solid kind of solid deck. I don't think it was kind of too crazy. The reprints in it were really nice though, but now those kind of reprints have dropped down a lot. Like the total cost of the deck is $47. Coma at the time was really, really expensive. Benny's still expensive, like still $5. Adrix and Nev's still $4, but that's from Adrix and Nev dropping down from, I think it was $20 at the time or something. All right, next up, we've got Revenant Recon. So this deck was based around surveilling. So you're surveilling, looking top, whatever, putting them into your graveyard or back on top. And then you had the chance to be able to resurrect something with Mirko. And there was a fair few different reanimation things. And this was where the kind of reprints went absolutely bonkers. This Revenant Recon deck had insanely great reprints. Like we had Animate Dead, we had Necromancy, Phyrexian Arenas reprinted here too. I feel like there was more. Oh, Reanimate 2, Black Sun Zenith. I didn't even know Black Sun Zenith was in here. Toxic Deluge. Well, Black Sun's not huge, but Rise of the Dark Realms as well. The new cards weren't insanely great, but they were still nice and still fit the deck really well. It actually had one of my favorite cards that was printed this year, which was the Marvo Deep Operative. But and I would love to make a deck around him, but I just don't think there's enough support for Clash yet where I could feel like I could make that and it be viable. But if one of you guys has made a Marvo deck, let me know. Overall, you know, it was a very solid kind of put together precon. It's got some clear ways that you're able to kind of upgrade it. Some cards that weren't hugely great within it, but still viable and still usable. So, you know, those are the kinds of ones that you can look at. Like one of the first cuts is going to be Marvo, obviously, unfortunately, but still good. We got like Sir Conrad in here. We got Massacre Worm. It overall was just a really nice, like put together precon and worked very well. And some crazy, crazy great reprints here too. So, you know, I compared to these other ones, this is going to go up to A as well. As I said, may adjust Nelly Borka later. And I think we'll put the best one over on the left, right? Like the highest one over on the left. Yeah. Overall, you know, it was a nice precon. All right, next up we got is Deadly Disguise. So this one here is based around playing face down creatures. So morph and like morphing stuff, manifest, disguise and cloak. So all 4 of those kind of mechanics. You've got like some manifest stuff in here. You've got cards that have morph that you can play face down. I think there was some cloak stuff in here, and disguise, which was the new version of it. Yeah, like we've got a disguise one there, which, you know, we've got cloak and stuff potentially in here too. So this was obviously, you know, a lot of kind of really interesting face down stuff, and they introduced a bunch of new face down support in this deck, which was great. Stuff like, you know, panoptic projector. I hate the way that is spelt. Yeah, that was new here, to be able to play some face down stuff. We had like, I think the print lifter ooze was new here as well. And, you know, some nice reprints in here too. Mirror Entity, Experiment 12 was new and is great in any kind of face down based deck. We had the reprint for Toski. Duskana is really cool and kind of came out from this deck as a very interesting card, where you can use her as a commander to like make an army of 2/2s. Eudora reprinted here too. Seedborn Muse, some just nice value stuff that's not necessarily, you know, super supportive towards what the base commander is doing. Like Seedborn Muse isn't super supportive towards that, but still great. Eudora as well allowed you to be able to, if your like morph stuff died, you could bring it back, or even just anything died. If it can come back, and then you can flip it with your face commander too, which was really cool. The enchantments, you know, nothing kind of huge. Nothing huge came out of this deck, I think, is the thing that I'm kind of, you know, think about. One of the did have Jeska's Will. Did have Jeska's Will, which is great. Jeska's Will is crazy good. But overall, you know, the deck kind of it's a morph deck, right? As much as I love the mechanic, I love face down cards, I love morph, I love, you know, that whole kind of cloak, or I love the new manifest dread and stuff. It's not a insanely great mechanic, and I don't think the precon was up to scratch for the other ones, or incredibly kind of put together well. So I am going to put this one down into C tier. I just don't think it stacks up against, you know, even like Deep Clue C. I don't think it's anywhere kind of close to that. I think that it's fun deck, and, you know, just because something's down in C doesn't mean that you shouldn't get it or anything. It's just kind of my recommendations at the moment. Alrighty, so next up we had the Hail Caesar deck. So this is from the Fallout set, so we moved on to Fallout. Hail Caesar is an aristocrat Mardu tokens deck, so you're going to create a lot of tokens, you're going to sacrifice those tokens, get value from it that way, you know, just kind of flood the board. It's got some kind of soldiery synergy in here as well. So with the Fallout decks, they didn't go quite as great, in my opinion, for the like reprints and stuff. And I think that they also clogged the deck down with like having the bobbleheads, 2 bobbleheads in each of them. But the bobbleheads for them, you kind of wanted multiple bobbleheads that didn't come in one precon. You'd have to go buy more if you want to kind of use them. So you had a lot of kind of different support in here for, like, you know, low creatures, getting a lot of creatures out and stuff. As I said, it's kind of sacrificing them as well. Kellogg was a great card that kind of came out of here. Mr. House as well, but he didn't really fit the deck is the thing. Like, he's meant to be the secondary commander here, but he didn't fit the deck very well because he's about like rolling dice, and realistically you've got Mr. House and like luck bobblehead, and that's really it for dice. Well, that's not really it. That is it for the deck, which wasn't great. You know, we did have a reprint for Pitiless Plunderer in here, though. You know, Bastion of Remembrance got a reprint, which isn't like a hugely important reprint, but it's still a nice kind of reprint to have in here. We've got a Black Market reprint as well. You know, there's some nice reprints, but nothing that kind of stood out hugely from memory, because like I think that most of the stuff that kind of got reprinted in here was already huge, or at least it's kind of gone down a lot since then, to the point that I'm like, with Skull Clamp, I guess Skull Clamp as well. As for how this deck kind of worked well together, I think that one of the issues with the Hail, like the Fallout sets, and I think it kind of extends over to Universes Beyond sets overall, is that they try and fit potentially too much flavor into the deck, so it ends up being like, you know, potentially drowning out some of that kind of synergies. Now the Fallout ones weren't quite as bad for like, working well together, because most of the cards kind of worked well. But one of the issues that the Fallout one then had was the opposite, where it kind of lost a bit of the flavor because they kind of just shoved a lot of different stuff in here that is, hey, look, he's a human and stuff, and it didn't really feel as kind of put together flavorfully as the like, say for example the Doctor Who ones kind of did. Overall, this deck wasn't bad. It is a good deck if you want to kind of pick up like a Mardu aristocrat kind of deck. I'm just kind of, as I'm kind of going through, I'm thinking about what, like, I think that, I would pretty much put this deck at like a solid B, but kind of like the lower end of B. I don't think it's up to Deep Clue C. Now, on the other hand, Mutant Menace. Now, Mutant Menace, like I just talked about how they weren't as flavorful. I do think that Mutant Menace was pretty flavorful. Just kind of having a look through it, mostly. So it was about kind of creating a lot of +1/+1s and putting lots of rad counters out on people. So rad was a new mechanic that essentially meant that at the start of your upkeep, you need to mill cards, and then depending on how many rad counters you had, and then you lost life and lost rad counters based on if you pulled non-lands, I believe it was. This deck did it rather well. It has a interesting kind of mutant subtype thematic as well, which was good. And I think that overall, this one's the one that kind of captured the mutant aspect and also the kind of flavor from that relatively well. It wasn't like, just a whole bunch of cards all over the place. There was some stuff that was a bit weird in here. Like they had like a couple investigative kind of stuff in here, like Piper Wright and stuff. I'm not sure entirely why she was in here. It's a bit weird. I think there was another investigate one in here as well that I can't remember. But overall, kind of a lot of +1 stuff in here, a lot of proliferate, and some kind of self-mill and taking advantage of that self-mill. Even the secondary commander works well with the primary commander, which I think is the kind of best thing about this one, as opposed to kind of the Hail Caesar one. But, I think that it had, I'm going to put this one as an A. I think that personally, I would put this one up as an A, which I was doing it the other way around, wasn't I? Whoops. Yeah. I would put this one up as an A, below Revenant Recon, but I do think it's really great. All right, next up we got Scrappy Survivors. So Scrappy Survivors is an aura/enchant based deck. So you're putting up auras on your creatures, putting up auras and equipment on to your creatures and everything. We had some nice kind of reprints in here, specifically around those kind of equipments and stuff. So like, Champion's Helm's not too bad. We had Basilisk Collar as well. There's some nice cards kind of throughout this. This one here, I do think kind of lost a little bit of its flavor, but not all that much. Like it was meant to be around like those survivors and everything. And I think that nearly every card in here is kind of around those survivors. It doesn't have a huge amount of creatures as well, which is interesting. In regards to the enchants though, they kind of just went with a little bit of splattering of everything for the enchants, which I wasn't a huge kind of fan of. It does have Heroic Intervention kind of reprinted in here. I love Inventory Management. I think it's a great card if you're running an equipment or aura deck to kind of rearrange things. My favorite, my thing that I've got this deck and I've built it, except I built it around Preston Garvey and kind of just lent more into the actual auras and kind of auraing up everything. I think that this deck was kind of middle of the pack. Like it was middle of the pack. It wasn't hugely great, but it wasn't hugely awful. It does have Pip-Boy in it though, which isn't good, which isn't bad. So I'm going to put this as like the kind of top of C. I think this is the top of C. It's good, but because of also the fact that it kind of leans into both the equipments and the auras, a little bit of that kind of get muddled because you're trying to do kind of a couple things at once and then kind of half-assing both of them, in my opinion. All right, now the last one here is the science deck. So this was artifacts and energy. So we had a lot of energy stuff and a lot of artifact stuff. And a lot of these cards here, people kind of took and pulled to put towards the new energy deck as well. Overall, it also had the Nuka-Cola. Nuka-Cola is Such a great card. Such a great card. They also reprinted Panharmonicon in here and Mystic Forge, both really great cards that suit the deck really well. As for the creatures, they didn't use from memory any of the equipment, any of the energy based creatures that had already exist. They just created new ones. And you can kind of have a look at it. It's now, I don't play all that much Fallout. I can't remember what they are. I think it's a Brotherhood of Steel kind of stuff, where they're like, or like the science-based people. I can't remember what they are from, which one they were from. But either way, I think that they kind of lent heavily into that kind of science aspect, which, suits the deck well, given it's called science. But they kind of left behind the energy. The energy ended up being like a side thing, in my opinion, to artifacts. So artifacts ended up being a bit bigger than the energy here. So if you are looking for an energy-based precon, we'll talk about one later on. But overall, it's kind of, I think it's similar to kind of the Scrappy Survivor one, where it's decent, and with upgrades, you can take it really, really well, and kind of lean heavier into either the artifacts or into the energy. Both would work well, but it's kind of a little bit kind of middling in both. I will say that I think it's slightly worse than the Fallout, the Fallout one, the Scrappy Survivor one, though. Alrighty, so now we get to everyone's favorite set that had no lore to it, the Desert Bloom, OTJ. Outlaws of Thunder Junction. If you don't know, they kind of brought back heaps of legendaries from previous sets, and everyone was a bit like, dude, why? It was a bit of an all-star kind of cast, and yeah, it kind of lost a bit of it. But in regards to the precons, which is a completely separate thing, we're going to start out with Desert Bloom. Now, I have literally made a video on Desert Bloom on this channel because of how much I love it. Desert Bloom, I think, was a very secret smash, and it had crazy stuff in it. So it is a desert-based landfall / graveyard like deck. So essentially, you're trying to like get your deserts out, and then you're sacrificing your deserts, or you're discarding your deserts, or you're milling to get your deserts into your graveyard, and then you're using that to be able to fuel various different cards. So you want to essentially sacrifice your deserts. It's a very unique precon, in my opinion. It had Hazazon reprinted in here as well. The other commander, which is Kiri, I don't think was great, but overall, it's not awful. Crazy reprints though as well in here. Like we had Scoot Swarm reprinted, Oracle of Muldiah, I believe, was reprinted in here, right? Yeah, our Oracle of Muldiah. We had Titania. I cannot pronounce that apparently today. Sun Titan again makes another look. One of the new cards was Angel of Indemnity. I believe she was new. We had a reprint of Ancient Green Warden here. There's just some really nice kind of reprints. I do think that this deck kind of suffered mostly in regards to its land base. Now, as I said, I'm not going to talk about the land bases too much, but this is a land-based deck, so I think we have to. One of the issues with deserts is that there's not many of them. And they didn't kind of bring in many new ones. I think there might have been one new one in the actual precon, but I can't remember which one it was. And other than that, they kind of reprinted some older ones in here. But it kind of meant that there wasn't all that many deserts in a deck that was based around wanting to have deserts and chucking the deserts in the bin. The interesting thing with this precon is that there is a lot of really great upgrades that you can get for relatively cheap. Like Nihiri's Lithoforming, when this came out, was like an 11-cent card. And it is a crazy win con because you just get to sack all your lands, you get a million triggers on Yuma, and then from there you can just do crazy things. Overall, the deck out of the box plays a bit clunky. I will say that. Plays a bit clunky. But once you kind of chuck a little bit of love into it, it plays a lot better. Now, that doesn't mean that, it's one of my favorite precons. I'm not going to put it up in A just because of that, though. But I do think it is a solid B. I think it's a solid B. I think it's better than the Hail Caesar deck. Deep Blue Sea, comparing them in my head. I don't think it's as good as the Deep Blue Sea just because of out of the box. You're kind of missing some stuff and you don't have the insane reprints that were in that, but it's still pretty good. All right, next we got a quick draw. Stella Lee. Stella Lee is an absolutely broken commander. You can make her go infinite. If you put one upgrade into this deck, or a few of these same upgrades, to be able to untap her, you can just infinitely storm off and just go crazy. Crazy great. Winged Boots is really good in here to be able to protect your Stella. Being able to chuck up Ward 4 onto her is really nice. The other stuff that's just based around kind of spell casting. And that's what the deck is. It is a spellcaster deck. With benefits for spell casting. They reprinted Veyran in here, reprinted Talrand, Archmage Emeritus as well, Niv Mizzet, the new Heiress. I love this card. I wish it was slightly better, but I do love it. It's really great. Arcane Bombardment. Like, there was some just really, really banger kind of reprints within this one. And as I said, all you need to do is like put in some ways to be able to untap Stella, and you can make this deck pop off so quickly. I have talked about previously on my channel about taking this precon and turning it into an otter precon. I promise that that video is coming. I'm getting there. It's just been so much stuff going on that I haven't get to yet. But either way, and if you're building an Izzet Spellslinger deck, this has like basically all of your staples in it, which is really good. I love seeing that they're starting to print more of they're just full on staples within precons. Now, I will say that this is our first S. I think that this deck is just a solid deck overall, very well put together, crazy well. It's going to be potentially hard to find because everyone's kind of picking it up, but as I said, with like slight upgrades, you will take this deck, you will explode with it. All right, next up we got is Gontai, Canny Inquisitor leading the Grand Larceny precon. So this precon here is based around just stealing people's stuff. However, the way it goes about it is very different to previous ones that were stealing stuff. So like we had the Captain Nagarthrod from what was it, Baldur's Gate. He was milling people and then stealing stuff. We had the Mutant Menace one, which is milling people and then stealing their stuff from their graveyard. There's some precons that are based around the pirate precon, stealing stuff off the top of people's decks and stuff. This one here was stealing stuff off the top of people's decks, but it was based around you dealing combat damage. And you'll notice that a lot with the cards that are in here. There's like a lot of stuff that is based around kind of combat damage and dealing combat damage to your enemies. Like the Felix 5 boots here doubles all your combat damage triggers as well, which is really cool. Panharmonicon, essentially. There was some nice kind of reprints in here, like Brainstealer Dragon as well, Orochi Soul Reaver 2. Hunting Rhetoric is really great. I love that. It's a way to be able to punish people for attacking you, and you get to steal their stuff if they attack you and everything. And what was the other thing that I was trying to think of? We've got Feed the Swarm, Villainous Wealth, which is just a huge payoff for you stealing stuff. Heartless Conscription, to be able to exile everyone's creatures and then be able to play them yourself. Just like, I think the thing with this deck is that, similar to what I said before about, decks being kind of pulled in two different directions, this one's very similar. But the directions that it was pulled into, one was meant to kind of work with your face commander, and because your face commander kind of synergizes well with both of those, it's not quite as bad as other versions of this that they have done previously. So personally, I think this one is a nice deck. It's not a bonkers deck, but it is a deck you can use to punch up on people relatively well. So having a look at the kind of different decks here, I think I'm going to put this one down in C, just because I do think it needs help, but it's kind of like the kind of top of C, right? It's relatively well put together with some kind of more creatures that aren't going to get blocked. You go a lot better. And overall, kind of theft just lets you kind of punch up against people pretty great. All right. The last one here for OTJ is the Most Wanted. So I think this deck is probably one of my least favorite. It's probably one of my least favorite. It just felt like they took Olivia and Outlaws. So this is based around the Outlaw grouping, which was Assassins, Mercenaries, Pirates, Rogues, and Warlocks. They all become Outlaws to get, like, they are Outlaws, and therefore they all kind of benefit from Outlaw stuff. So Olivia's meant to kind of create treasures based off of that. You had a bunch of things in here that were kind of like outlaw support and stuff. But when you have a look at the actual creatures and everything, they just kind of chucked anything that was a, you know, warlock, pirate, assassin, rogue, mercenary in there. It's just a little kind of all over the place in regards to creatures. That does not mean it's necessarily awful, because they reprinted some nice kind of ones in here for the first time. And you know, we got Lightning Greaves in here, which is good. What's the other one that's giving a whole bunch of value to the here? The Trailblazer Boots, I guess. I don't know. It's the enchantments we write at Dorm I use within my legendary deck, legend based deck. Like, it just kind of, yeah, the value for this is also just kind of dropped off because of the reprints that are within it. The value for it kind of dropped a bunch. There are what creatures of value in here? We've got the Academy Manufacturer. We've got like Mari. Mari went up a lot when Assassin's Creed set came out. Vihan's a really nice commander, a very interesting kind of alt commander there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm too tough on this deck. Out of the box, it doesn't play too badly. But that's also just because it is just Mardu kind of good stuff in regards to that. I'm going to put it like, I'm going to put it here, I think. I'm going to put it here. Now, most of this could potentially be like my personal bias, but I think with like, it's just, it doesn't have thematic. It just kind of has, here's a whole bunch of bad guys as well. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of happy with it there. I think it's better that, and I'd be more likely to suggest it than the Deadly. No, actually, I think I'm going to switch it around. I think I'd suggest that less than the Deadly Disguise Precon, to be honest. In fact, I'm going to put it down in D. I don't know. I don't like that Precon at all. As I said, it's just kind of a little bit all over the place. The reprint value isn't hugely there anymore because they've got reprinted and you can pick them up pretty easy. And kind of everything else is a little bit not insanely great, not kind of, it's forgettable, which is probably worse than being bad in my opinion. Alrighty, next up we've got Modern Horizons 3. So Modern Horizons 3 was a bonkers, really, really nice precons in my opinion. Harder to get, more expensive, but some really nice precons to put together. So we'll start off with the Eldrazi Incursion. So this one here has Ululek, and it is just Eldrazi Tribal. But you've got ways to be able to copy your Eldrazi, be able to create more little tokeny ones, and do some really cool stuff with that. So looking at kind of like the cards that kind of reprinted in here as well, like we had like a Herald's Horn, we had Eldrazi Monument, the Forsaken Monument there as well, Mystic Forge, some really nice kind of reprints as well. The deck was very much a Eldrazi based deck, which was good. We last time, you know, they brought in the Eldrazi based deck. It was less Eldrazi, more just generic kind of colorless. But this one here is a 5-color one. And, you know, we've got Eldrazi Conscription reprinted here. Kozilek's Return. I can't remember if that was a reprint or a new one. I feel like that was a reprint, right? That was a new one. Sorry, that was a reprint, yeah. Eldrazi Confluence. That one was a new one. The land base wasn't awful, which was interesting given the fact that it's a 5-color deck. It's nothing like insanely good, but it wasn't bad. That's the big thing, is it wasn't bad. We got Ugin reprinted in here too. You know, we got like the All Is Dust there. You know, just some it overall was a very nice and very well put together precon. Now, the bigger issue is everyone wanted this precon because it was a, Eldrazi deck. It is relatively well put together and it is a nice deck, which means that it is incredibly hard to find and incredibly expensive. But it's still really good. It's still really, really good. It's easily an S tier deck. Yeah. And the other thing is that with Orlek, you can make him go infinite so easily. If we go up here to Rex and go combos, yeah. So look, there is just so many different combos you can build with this. This is with Eldrazi Displacer, actually. There's just a lot of different combos that you can easily shove. I gotta scroll faster. There's just so many different combos you can add into that deck and break it really easy. Next up, we got this tricky terrain one. This is probably the one from, I would say this is the one from Modern Horizons 3 that I'm less happy about. I don't know if it's just the way that I've seen it played or the way that I've played it myself, but I just don't think it was a hugely, hugely great deck. So it is a landfall deck, but also a land type matters deck and a creature type matters deck. The creature type matters isn't huge. The land type matters is kind of a little bit more minor, but it is like, just getting a lot of land stuff out. If I was looking to get a land-based deck, I would either get one later on that we'll talk about later, or I would get the deserts one, the desert bloom one that we talked about just before. That's not to say this is a bad deck. Not a bad deck. We've got ways to be able to protect ourselves in here, but you can see this one here, Desert Warfare, right? Whenever you sacrifice a desert or whenever a desert card is put into your graveyard. So the whole thing is about that is you're trying to make everything into deserts, but then, it's, most of the value for this one was in the new lands. We got Horizon of Progress here, Lazarteep, Quarry. We got Planar, Nexus, and reprinted lands as well. Talon Gates was new. What was the reprinted one? Vesuva. Vesuva was reprinted here. Yavimaya. There's a lot of reprinted lands and really strong lands that came out of this that were really good. And that's where most of the kind of value is for it, unfortunately. I don't know. It's not... I don't know. I think you could easily make this deck a lot more busted if you kind of lent more into either one of the aspects of it. But it kind of was a little bit all over the place, in my opinion. I think that I'll put it down here. No, I think it's... I don't know. I think I've become more harsh on it after seeing the latest kind of landfall-based deck. It's got good reprints. I'm going to put it up here, I think. I'd be more likely to suggest it over the Gonto one, I think. If someone's not looking for a thief deck. Actually, no, I think I'll do that. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I think that's good. All right, next up we got is Creative Energy. So Creative Energy is an energy-based deck, and this one pulls off energy-based a lot better than the other one. It is just leans more heavily into the energy-based stuff. A lot of kind of energy-based reprints within here, but now that those were reprinted, they've kind of not as hugely important and hugely expensive. We got Gontai's Aetherheart here, Aetherworks Marvel reprinted here too. We had a bunch of creatures in here that were energy based too, or, token based. So Professional Facebreaker in here too. Kaith's another one that just goes infinite so easily. We had Goldspan Dragon reprinted there. And there was one more expensive reprint that I probably just missed here. I think it's mostly just Goldspan and Professional Facebreaker. Just adding in some stuff in there. So if you kind of take this deck and kind of combine it together with the science-based deck, you could build a really, really great energy deck, I think. And that's what I've done myself personally. Overall, we got Farewell in here, which is really good too. Overall, it's a fun deck. The Face Commander, Satya, goes infinite pretty easily. We've got Kaith over here. They can upgrade in so many different ways as well to make, go infinite or incredibly strong. You can make this deck really strong really easily. But yeah, it's dropped in value a bit. I'm going to put this up here, I think. I think that it is better than the Mardu deck here. but I don't think it's as good as Yuma. All right, now for the last one here, which is Graveyard Overdrive, which is probably the most underrated precon. Everyone seems to think that this is an awful precon. I've played it so much, both out of the box and once I've upgraded as a Legoif tribal. So the face commander here, whenever a Legoif is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, put it onto the battlefield, and whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a Tarmogoyf. You can create 3 Tarmogoyfs per turn if you manage to get through and stuff. Great reprints. Reaver Cleaver, Maskwood Nexus, some other ones in here as well. We've got new cards like Barrogoyf, which was nice. We've got Polygoyf as well, which is also really nice. Overall, you know, it's got some mill-based stuff, but the issue with it was that it just didn't have enough mill-based stuff, in my opinion. Not enough kind of continuous mill. Like, you got like one-off mills like Deadbridge Chant here and stuff, but no way to kind of continuously mill enough, in my opinion. But you know, it did have some nice kind of reprints in here. The reprints have mostly kind of dropped down now that they've kind of come out, though. You've got Sir Conrad in here, which is nice. Overall, kind of, it's a good deck, but you've got to upgrade it. But it is still really, really nice out of the box as well. Personally, I think that everyone's kind of too harsh on this one. I think that it's up here. Yeah, I think it's up there. I'm gonna move Deep Clue C up to here. I think that it's kind of, no, I think it's fine down there. Yeah, I think, no, wait, no, I think it's better than you. No, yeah, I'm just having a think about it. I think it's top of B. I think it's top of B. I think it's better than Deep Clue C. Yeah, I think that's a good place for it. All right. All right, so next up, we've got the Bloomburrow ones, starting with Squirreled Away. Now, I will say the Bloomburrow ones were really nice as well. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just really happy with Bloomburrow overall. So starting with Squirreled Away, this is based around squirrels, but it wasn't huge on the squirrel. It was mostly just like tokens and a lot of token stuff. Which isn't too bad. Like, tokens are good. We had some nice reprints in here too. We got Skull Clamp, we got Maskwood Nexus, Haywire Might's a really great one in here. We also had like a food secondary thing in here too. And we got like Academy Manufacturer. A lot of token based stuff though, right? Like, just tokens. Food is kind of like and then squirrels, and then food is kind of the different things, priorities. Priorities? No, that's not the right word. I can't think of what I'm trying to say. Yeah, we got Saw in Half kind of reprinted here for the first time ever since the original printing in like Unfinity or whichever unset it was. Land base, really great. They started doing some bonkers stuff with their land bases in Blueburrow, which was good. Sorcery's not too bad either. Swarmyard Nexus is going to be a staple in so many decks that either have insect, rats, squirrels, or spiders. It's a board wipe for any of those, not those. Overall, really kind of great deck that I'm going to put just straight up here. I think it's a really, really nice deck overall. Well put together. Mostly just focused around tokens. So if you want to make it squirrels, you got to move it over to squirrels. But overall, really good. We've got Animated Army. The Animated Army is Bellow is going to turn all your non-equipment artifacts and non-aura enchants. So just any artifacts that are sitting on the table, not equipped to things, and same with auras. Same with enchants. You're going to turn those into creatures. You're going to throw them at people. There were some nice reprints in here too. Not quite as good as the Squirreled Away one. We got like Bootlegger Sash, which is a good one. I think there was a couple of really great creatures in here too that were reprinted, like Tendershoot Dryad, which is good. Golter was reprinted in here, which probably didn't need to be. We got the new Brightcap Badger, which I like a lot, especially when you kind of combine it with Tendershoot Dryad there. The enchants was where they kind of went nuts here. The Greater Good. Alchemist Talent was a new one. Really, really great one. We've got like Unnatural Growth got reprinted in here too. And there was one more that was really good, I thought. Just like Garrick's Upright. Like basically all of them. Like there is a lot of really great enchants in here too. The land base, not too bad given the fact that it's just a 2-color land base in a precon. Not awful, not incredibly like, you know, it's good. It's good. It's probably the best way to kind of phrase it there. Yeah. Overall, you know, a nice deck. Nothing to kind of go bonkers about, but also I think that Bellow just works so much better when you lean into this kind of stuff. Lean into the vehicles and everything. If you take Bellow, upgrade it with vehicles, it's a crazy, crazy fun precon and a crazy good precon. Overall, though, if I'm placing it, I think the Bellow's down here. No, I think he's slightly better than Satya. Yeah, I'd put him like there. I think that he's just kind of good, but not bonkers crazy. All right, next I got Peace Offering. Yeah, I've talked about Peace Offering a lot. It's quickly become one of my favorite decks. It had some really, really nice reprints in here. It is a group hug deck, so we're going to be handing out love to everyone. We're going to be, you know, mostly in regards to cards, and there's a lot of card draw stuff for yourself as well as opponents too. There's some stuff in here that I'm like, why is this in here? Like Realm Cloaked Giant. And we've also got alt win cons. Alt win cons showing up in precons is very interesting. Like, you know, Simic Ascendancy in here. We've got Triskaidefile. Yeah, Triskaidefile. And we got 20-toed Toad. All kind of alt win cons. And you can add in more as well. Perch Protection is essentially like a Teferi's Protection, except you have to gift a turn and it costs slightly more. But you do get creatures in addition to it. The land base isn't too bad as well, which is good. Overall, I'm so happy with this deck. It is not one that I would suggest for new players because of the fact that it is group hug, which makes it, you know, harder to play and stuff, but it isn't too bad. And I think that it is a good precon. And, you know, if someone's a little bit more veteran into the game, I would 100% suggest it. Next, we got Family Matters. So this is a precon that is based around just playing a lot of creatures that have really strong ETBs. Thanks to Zinnia, you're going to be copying them. You've got a lot of ways to be able to create a lot of 1/1s and stuff, kind of flood the board out with them. Agate Instigator was the huge card from this. Jackrabbit as well is used a lot, and then Polywog Prodigy. Those, like, 3 cards alone are like most of the value of the precon, right? And Zinnia is great as a commander. Overall, you know, I like this deck a lot. It just felt really all over the place in regards to the creatures. They like went with some that were like really, really great and stuff, but then they also went with some that were like, this is generic good creature that has a good ETB or something, which was not kind of what the deck kind of needed there. Got Calamity of Cinders. Calamity of Cinders is really great if you're going to be tapping stuff down. Like you've got like Convoke stuff. If you put some Convoke stuff into that to tap stuff down, really cool. Murmuration's cool too. So overall, you know, the new cards that were in here were good. The reprints weren't too bad as well, but it just kind of felt a little out of the box. Felt a little bit kind of all over the place in regards to its creatures and stuff. If I'm having a look, I do think it is better than Bellow. I think it's better than Yuma. I think it's up here. Yeah, I think it's up here. I think it's slightly better than the Squirreled Away one with upgrades. And I think I want to take into account the upgrades for this one. Like, I like all of them kind of like, you know, I have to take into account once they upgrade a little bit. But this one here is going to be pretty cheap to upgrade, and then you can get some huge value out of it. All right, next up, we've got Duskmourn, and we're going to be starting with the jump scare one with Zamone. This is a landfall deck. This is what a landfall deck should be. It's a crazy great landfall deck. So it's not all landfall. It is a mixture between this Manifest Dread, which is you look at top 2 cards of your deck, you put one into the graveyard, one onto the board, manifest it. So it is a face down based deck. But it does it really, really well, in my opinion. You're not casting things face down, you're just manifesting them face down either through Manifest directly or Manifest Dread. The reprints in this deck are really, really great too. Like for a start off, we've got Scoot Swarm again. The Scoot Swarm getting reprinted in a lands deck makes a lot of sense. We've got Ashaya in here. We've got Eudora, which is a great reprint. Not a hugely valuable one, but still a great reprint in here. We just got a lot of kind of really decent value. We got the new Shriekwood Devourer, which allows you to untap your lands and stuff too. We've got Primordial Mist. Works so well with this deck because you can exile your face down cards face up, and then you can play them. So if you happen to get an instant or sorcery face down from Manifesting or Manifesting Dread, then boom, you can play this, you can manifest it over there, and then you can play that card. Really, really nice. Overall, the land base is nice. Not crazy great, but still nice, if that makes sense. Like, it's not over the top, but it's kind of like that nice kind of middle of the pack one where, for a land-based deck, you do want to go and upgrade this for sure, but it's workable out of the box too. Overall, as I said, this is what it's got AC in it too. Oh man, I still can't believe the amount of really kind of great reprints that they put into this deck, including an infinite. You've got an infinite with Sakura, Eudora, and Zamone. Right, just straight out of the box, you've got an infinite to be able to just get infinite LTB, infinite land triggers and stuff. Crazy great. Now, I know people are going to disagree with me with this, but I'm really high up on this deck, and I think that it's really great. Watching it in practice is really great. The ways you can upgrade it, you can just upgrade it with so much cheap manifest and stuff, because no one wants to play that stuff, so you can get it really cheap. And you can just do some really bonkers stuff with this, and honestly, I just think it's amazing. Next up, we've got Endless Punishment. So Endless Punishment is a group slug-based deck, which means you're going to be burning people, you're going to be dealing damage out to everyone with your creatures whenever they do things, with your artifacts. I don't know if there's any artifacts that do it. No, not really. But with your enchantments and stuff as well. You're going to be just dealing damage to everyone every time they do something. If they draw a card, if they kill something, if they, look at you funny, if they, look at your mum funny, you're going to be dealing damage to them, right? The reprints were really nice in this deck too. They had some really, really cool reprints, which is great. Like Mogus getting reprinted here. We've got like the Lord of Pain is a better commander getting printed here for the first time, which is really nice. Overall, Gary got reprinted here. There's just some nice stuff kind of overall throughout this deck, which is good. It's the issue with this deck is that it kind of suffers from that same, it needs some upgrades for it. It needs more payoffs for that kind of pinging people for damage, which it didn't really have in the Precon, unfortunately. And I don't think the face commander does it incredibly well. He only does it once per turn, but you're not going to be dealing damage to people once per turn. You're going to be dealing damage to them multiple times every time they kind of do something, every time they look at you funny. So overall, I think this deck is nice. I don't think it's bonkers crazy. I think that I'm going to put it here. I think with upgrades, you could bring it up to this Family Matters kind of area. Any of these precons you could break easily, not break easily, you could break. But I think that this one's just a little bit kind of more disappointing to myself. And I think that it just doesn't kind of live up to what I would hope for it. All right, next we've got Death Toll. So this is a mill-based deck with a side of reanimation and delirium. So, wanting stuff in your graveyard. The reprints in here are really great. You got Whip of Erebos. You've got some creatures in here that were reprinted that were really good too. It's also got some weird kind of, we're going to make a whole bunch of insect stuff, and insect is like this weird kind of subcategory of stuff that it's trying to do as well. And the other thing that's got is a lot of kind of cards with 2 card types, which works really well with the secondary commander, which is Rendmore over here, which creates birds for everyone whenever you cast stuff with 2 or more card types. So that are goaded too. So overall, you know, the deck plays pretty well. I was surprised at how well it plays, given the fact that you are exiling stuff to be able to reanimate stuff. But you know, it still plays decently well. You know, you got some nice stapley kind of stuff in here. I think that overall, you know, it's a deck that could use a fair bit more mill stuff in here, but you can easily kind of upgrade it with stuff like removing some of this weird bug synergy that has gone in here to be able to kind of upgrade it. And I think that after you kind of do that, it's pretty strong. So I'm going to put it up here next to like the Fallout one. I've got 3 mill decks in a row, I just realized. Yeah, that's fine. All right, now the last one here, well, second last, is Miracle Worker. So Miracle Worker is a top deck enchantment base. So you want to rearrange stuff onto your top of your deck, or manipulate the top of your deck to be able to draw an enchantment and then play it for cheap. Or just be able to play enchantments overall. You've got a bunch of stuff in here that's just enchantment synergy, giving your enchantments in your graveyard escape. Whenever you play enchantments, copy them, etc. A lot of nice reprints, again, which is good. I'm actually surprised Arvinox was reprinted in here. Yeah, crazy. And yeah, overall, kind of just a lot of kind of enchant stuff. Having a think about it though, like the deck has a lot of enchant stuff, and a lot of nice enchant stuff, but it's needs upgraded severely. It's a good kind of basis and like shell for the deck, but it just needs a lot. Now, it's why on my like top 10 it ends up being like a bonus. Because with the bonus, you could, and like upgrading it can go crazy great. But it's kind of before that. So I'm going to put it here. I don't think it's awful. But I just don't think it's kind of great out of the box. And it's going to be hard for new players. Once you could do some upgrades, sure. But before that, yeah, kind of thing. All right. Now, you're probably noticing there's one left down here. That is the Cats and Dogs Precon. I'm going to bring that up. So, this is the Rinenseri Precon that came as a secret lair. It sold out within 6 hours, which means that if you weren't on within those 6 hours, you missed out on it. It has crazy great art. It's built rather well as well. Like, you know, it's got some really expensive-ish kind of cards within it. Like, you know, if we have a look at the enchantments here, like the Anointed Procession, we've got like, we've got Jetmir in here, we've got Jenny Faye, we've got like a exclusive Soul Ring, Maskwood Nexus, Vanquisher Banner. Like, this is a very, very well-built precon, and if it came out as a precon, this would be an S tier precon. I would be suggesting people get it straight away. It is cat dog tribal, with, you know, thematics around the like Face Commander and stuff like that, Rinenseri. It's incredibly great. Good luck ever getting it though. I'm going to put it down here in D. I'm putting it down here purely in D because of the fact that it's just so incredibly hard to be able to get it. If you're going to buy it now in Australia, I think people are selling it for $500. It's, yeah. If not for the fact that it was so hard to get, it would be up in your S easily. It would probably be like up here-ish. But because it's just so hard to get, it is down here. But anyway, guys, that's it for today. Let me know what you guys think of the tier list. Have a great day and goodbye.